This is kind of strange.
Yeah, strange, Charlie, but it's fun.
There's no earthly way of knowing
He's singing.
which direction we are going.
Hey, what's up everyone, it's Ryan here from The Y, and today we're gonna be taking a look at Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. As you probably already know from the thumbnail, this video is gonna be solely based on the 1971 version, just because I think the original is more iconic, and it's additionally what I grew up with. But whether we're talking about the original or the remake, the strange universe of Willy Wonka, which includes golden tickets, shitty kids, an asshole grandpa, and Oompa Loompas, has led to much speculation about the world and what's really going on in it. So, without further ado, here's two theories about Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, too good not to be true. If we take a look at Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, I think it's fair to say there really isn't an overarching villain. We all assumed it was Slugworth till his identity was revealed, so that should leave us with the spoiled kids as the only option for the true antagonists. But, as you may have already seen, the internet has unceremoniously crowned a person who they consider to be far worse than any of the aforementioned names: Old Grandpa Joe. The movement behind exposing Grandpa Joe as the true villain of the movie is extensive and contains a catchphrase: "Say no to Grandpa Joe," a subreddit, "Our Grandpa Joe Hate," and of course, countless memes. And after rewatching the film, it was made apparent to me exactly why people felt this way. Among the many examples of Grandpa Joe's questionable behavior, there's the fact that he's supposedly bedridden and gives this as his excuse.
I've yet to see you set foot on the floor.
Maybe if the floor wasn't so cold.
And if that wasn't enough, when he finds out that Charlie's won a golden ticket, he dances around like he's 20 years old.
Good morning! Look at the sun! As soon as I get my strength back, I'm gonna get out of this bed and help him.
Then of course you have the situation where Grandpa Joe had them steal the fizzy lifting drinks,
Let's take a drink, Charlie. Nobody's watching.
which almost killed them both and nearly lost Charlie the competition. So I think you get the point. Grandpa Joe is somewhat morally questionable, a bit of a risk taker, and if he wasn't family, you'd probably think he was out to sabotage Charlie. All this leads into the following theory posted to Reddit by Cheese and Onion Crisps, that Grandpa Joe not only tried to sabotage Charlie, but he also successfully destroyed his family's finances and forced them into poverty by way of a gambling addiction. And looking at the movie, this isn't all too far-fetched. Like I said before, Grandpa Joe's already been proven to be morally ambiguous and a risk taker, and the very first scene he's in reinforces that statement.
What difference does it make where he got it? Point is, he got it.
But next is where things get interesting. Willy Wonka announces his contest with the Wonka bars and the golden tickets, an event which reignites Grandpa Joe's dream of winning the lottery. You can see that besides Charlie, Grandpa Joe is the only one with the keen interest in the sweepstakes, and that interest soon turns into him actually purchasing a Wonka bar, which the family was clearly unable to afford. Of course, Grandpa Joe buys it under the pretense of giving it to Charlie as a birthday present, but we all know deep down he just wants that sweet dopamine hit of winning it big.
Open it, Charlie. Let's see that golden ticket.
And notice Mrs. Bucket's reaction. There's undoubtedly a concerned look on her face as if she's being reminded of her dad's previous gambling problem, which financially ruined the family. The next scene couldn't be any more perfect. As if Grandpa Joe wasn't already sketchy enough, he wakes Charlie up in the middle of the night to open another Wonka bar in complete secrecy. And something that Charlie says caught my attention for a couple different reasons.
Grandpa, that money was for tobacco.
I told you, Charlie. I've given it up. Go on, open it.
Now, besides the fact that it's kinda shitty for Grandpa Joe to be using his daughter's hard-earned money to buy tobacco while they're literally eating cabbage water, the link between smoking and gambling is more prevalent than you would think. It's not to say that every smoker is a gambler or vice versa, but studies have actually found that up to 2/3 of treatment-seeking gamblers are current daily cigarette smokers. Again, the two are not always correlated, but it sure seems like Grandpa Joe is trading out one addiction for another. And just listen to what Grandpa Joe says before opening the Wonka bar.
Now, let's see some of that gold. Something tells me we're going to be lucky this time. I got a funny feeling inside it.
If that doesn't sound like a man with a gambling problem, I don't know what to tell you. And not to mention the look on his face while opening it versus the look on Charlie's face. For Charlie, it's just a fun experience to be had with his grandpa, and he doesn't actually expect to win anything. But for Grandpa Joe, the look on his face indicates the experience all gambling addicts live for, namely the dopamine release that increases exponentially during the moments leading up to a potential win. But just as gambling addicts live for the thrill of potentially hitting the big one, they also all experience the same massive come down when they unsurprisingly lose. The only way to describe Grandpa Joe's reaction after losing once again is utter shock. And if you think about it, the only people who are so sure of a win that they react with complete surprise when they don't win are people with an unhealthy relationship to gambling. Even Charlie understands how much Grandpa Joe had riding on winning the last golden ticket, as he takes it upon himself to comfort him when normally it should be the other way around. So based on all the evidence, I think there's a good chance that Grandpa Joe previously had a gambling addiction that drained the family of any savings they had and forced them into poverty. It would explain why he so unreasonably thinks he'll win a golden ticket just because he wants it more and he's got a funny feeling.
I've got the same chance as anybody else, haven't I?
You got more, Charlie, because you wanted more.
And it shows that he's willing to bet money in the form of a Wonka bar in order to try and prove that false belief. Also, the fact that he's even able to get the Wonka bars in the first place without anybody knowing proves that Grandpa Joe's somewhat adept at sneaking away, a skill he probably employed in the past to head down to the bookies. And finally, this whole theory may also provide a reason as to why Grandpa Joe lays in bed all day. People say that he's a lazy for letting Charlie and Mrs. Bucket make all the money, but I dare say his daughter may like it better that way. Because what's the first thing Grandpa Joe's gonna get up to if he's released out onto the streets? Yeah, he's heading straight to the bookies just because something told him it's his lucky day.
What about me, Grandpa?
Sign away, Charlie. We got nothing to lose.
And if we take that logic and apply it to his daily bowl of tobacco, it's quite possible that Mrs. Bucket is simply appeasing him because she knows the alternative is much, much worse.
Something tells me we're going to be lucky this time. I got a funny feeling inside.
I'm giving it up.
Come on, Dad. It's only one pipe a day.
While nothing was ever explicitly stated, I think many people got the feeling that Willy Wonka knew more than he let on. And taking a look at the evidence, it actually makes a lot of sense. The man runs the largest candy corporation in the world, and we're all just supposed to believe that he set up a competition to find his replacement and left it all to chance? Not likely. And this theory by Palvs88 on Reddit states that it wasn't luck that led to Charlie finding the golden ticket, but rather he was handpicked by Willy Wonka to win the whole thing.
Did it! I knew you would! I just knew you would!
The first thing to remember when talking about Willy Wonka is just how many resources he has access to, but also the cost it comes at. He's one of the most popular figures on Earth, is no doubt a billionaire, and is shown to employ people who operate outside the factory because he really never leaves. And the fact that he never leaves the factory illustrates a core aspect of his personality. Wonka is very much a cynical and untrusting man, and it's hard to blame him. Remember that before he shut the factory down, his popularity had grown to such a level that it almost ruined him and his business.
Why do you lock it?
Because all the other chocolate makers in the world were sending in spies.
I believe it's for this reason that Willy Wonka decided it was necessary to find a local kid to become his protege. And thinking about it logically, it's easy to see why he'd find this to be so crucial. Imagine being a kid growing up in the same city as the world-famous Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. It's almost a guarantee that you would have idolized the man and everything about his chocolate. To have such a long-standing, deep emotional connection with the chocolate factory and what it stands for is, I believe, one of the main considerations Willy Wonka took into account when deciding it had to be a local kid. Besides this being an obvious attempt at ensuring that the kid loved and adored the business, going back to his cynical nature, I think it was more a case of lowering the chances of the worst case scenario. Namely, that in the future, the kid would potentially give away the business's trade secrets or even sell it entirely. Adding on to this is the fact that it's very likely that someone from another city, state, or country would someday get homesick and move back to where they came from. It's for all these reasons that Wonka believed it was necessary that his successor be someone local. But that doesn't mean it could be just anyone. Willy Wonka was looking for someone who was kind-hearted, humble, and also someone who could think for themselves. And since he couldn't go and personally vet which children matched that description, he relied upon hired help like Mr. Wilkinson to compile a list of suitable candidates. Exactly how many people in the town are undercover employees of Wonka's is unknown. But if we take a look at Bill, the local candy shop owner, there's a pretty good chance he's one of them. I mean, the man runs a local candy shop in the same town as Wonka's chocolate factory. It's hard to believe that they're not connected in some way. Besides, how else is he able to give away so much free candy?
Willy Wonka makes everything he bakes satisfying and delicious.
So, assuming that Bill is an employee of Willy Wonka, it follows that one of his main duties would be to compile a list of kids who fit the bill. And it goes without saying that Charlie would have been on the top of that list. A poor kid always peering in through the windows, but with never enough money to come in. And a kid who always has a good attitude and a knack for helping others, shown by him getting a job as a paperboy to help feed his family. Although, before Charlie can be given the golden ticket, Wonka decides to give him a test before the test. But for Charlie to even reach the starting line of the exam, they had to give him a little help. I always thought it was kind of fishy how Charlie just randomly found a perfectly placed coin directly on his way home from school, and also a couple steps away from the candy store. It's not a big stretch that someone could have planted it there for him to find. And pulling this off is actually easier than it sounds. Charlie most likely takes the same route home from school every day, so all they would need to do is plant it in a location he would for sure see, and also in a place nearby the candy shop, thereby encouraging him to walk right in. And once inside, Charlie's real test begins. As you know, he walks in, asks for a chocolate bar, then this happens.
What kind? A Slugworth Sizzler? Wonka Scrumdiddlyumptious?
Whichever's the biggest.
Try a Wonka Scrumdiddlyumptious.
If this was the end of their interaction, then Charlie, of course, would have never have gotten the golden ticket. And it's for this reason they gave him enough money to buy 2 chocolate bars. Willy Wonka says it best at the end of the film.
So shines a good deed in a weary world.
Just as Charlie passed the test at the end by returning the everlasting gobstopper, he additionally passes the first test Willy Wonka gave him by thinking of his grandpa and doing a good deed.
I think I'll buy just one more. For my Grandpa Joe.
Immediately, Bill tells him to try a regular Wonka bar this time.
Sure. Why not try a regular Wonka bar this time?
Fine.
And before Charlie can even reply, Bill has already picked out one to give him. But why would Bill tell him to try a regular Wonka bar when it wasn't even one of the 2 he suggested earlier?
What kind? A Slugworth Sizzler? Wonka Scrumdiddlyumptious?
And notice how he grabs the Wonka bar used as a display rather than just getting one from the stack. To me, it's apparent that Bill knew exactly which Wonka bar had the golden ticket and gave it to Charlie as a result of him passing the test with flying colors. So if we operate under the assumption that Charlie was handpicked by Willy Wonka to become his protege, you might be wondering, what's the deal with the other kids? Well, for one, we have to remember that Wonka had to bring them simply because of the whole contest thing. He couldn't just say, hey Charlie, you're the chosen one and you're gonna be taking over my entire business as long as you don't f things up. But further than that, I think the other kids also had a specific role to play in Willy Wonka's master plan.
I don't understand it. The children are disappearing like rabbits.
Just like how Charlie finding the golden ticket just had too many coincidences to be believable, the way each of the kids dropped out of the tour was also too picture perfect. To be fair, Augustus would have failed at any point in the tour, so he basically took care of himself. But in terms of the other 3 kids, I think it's obvious that Wonka knew exactly what he was doing.
My gum, it's gum.
Wrong! It's the most amazing, fabulous, sensational gum in the whole world.
Are they chocolate eggs?
Golden chocolate eggs. That's a great delicacy.
Television.
It's Wonka vision. Now, I suppose you all know how ordinary television works. You photograph something.
Sure, I do.
And after rewatching the movie, it also struck me just how aloof and nonchalant he was after each kid was eliminated.
Don't just stand there, do something!
Help. Police. Murder.
I don't care.
Oh, I wouldn't do that. I really wouldn't. Stop. Don't. She was a bad egg. Stop, don't, come back.
The only explanation that makes any sense is that he had prior knowledge of all their flaws and everything was going to plan. And in my opinion, his plan was simply this. He of course intended for all of them to fail at various stops in the tour, but it was actually done with a higher purpose in mind. Wonka was using this as a way of teaching Charlie about the many pitfalls of life and how not to be. Sure, he could have just told him later, you know, don't be gluttonous, greedy, prideful, and lazy. But that wouldn't be nearly as effective as bringing in 4 absolute caricatures of those personality traits to act it out right in front of him.
Why doesn't she listen to Mr. Wonka?
Hey, Daddy, I want a golden goose.
Here we go again.
This theory also brings some more clarity to the Oompa Loompas and the songs they sing after each elimination. The lyrics are clearly based in various moral principles that denote how to be and how not to be.
What do you get from a glut of TV? A pain in the neck and an IQ of 3.
But it's not like the Oompa Loompas came up with these concepts themselves, because, as Willy Wonka described, the Oompa Loompas were basically indiscernible from savages when he first met them.
No Oompa Loompas. From Loompaland. Nothing but desolate wastes and fierce beasts. And the poor little Oompa Loompas. So I said, come and live with me in peace and safety.
It's obvious that when he brought them back to work in his factory, Wonka imprinted his moral beliefs in them, just as we see him doing with Charlie. So, TLDR, Willy Wonka planned everything in advance surrounding the Wonka bars and the golden tickets, including Charlie Bucket and the 4 other kids, meant to show him who he should strive not to be. Thank you all for watching, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to leave me a like and subscribe. Alright, till next time, have a great day everyone.